the one that had the knowledge from their ancestors. They had the information on how to build megalithic structures.
The Nephilim remains a mystery that has captivated scholars for centuries. These giants, said to be half god and half human, once roamed and conquered the ancient world until God himself decided to exterminate them, fearing their mighty power. Born from the union of divine beings and human mothers, the Nephilim were seen as a threat to the natural order.
They knew the celestial cycles. They knew multiple languages, and they also had the technology, according to the ancient texts, to travel around the planet.
But why did God choose to wipe out these mighty beings? Join us as we explore the reasons behind God's fear and uncover the hidden truths that countless scholars have tried to conceal.
But these beings were very, very advanced, and they were imparting that wisdom to human beings.
Fallen angels and women. The Nephilim have fascinated a broad audience, ranging from scholars to those who simply enjoy old, intriguing stories. The Book of Genesis references these beings as giants, offspring of divine beings and human women. This idea seems more like a plot from a mythic tale than a religious text, presenting a dramatic and questionable mix of the divine and the human. Nephilim comes from the Hebrew word naphal, meaning to fall. This origin story points to a dual downfall, literal and metaphorical, implying that these beings were diminished right from their creation. The narrative of their origins and the actions of their celestial parents adds a dramatic layer, portraying a saga of moral and spiritual decline that could rival the plot of a tragic play. Yet, despite the drama, the celestial beings' irresponsible actions appear to diminish their stature more than the narrative elevates their mystique. The story from Genesis 6 about the sons of God has sparked many debates and discussions among scholars and believers. Here's a straightforward and somewhat skeptical look at the three main ideas people have suggested over time. First, the fallen angels theory. This idea suggests that the sons of God were actually rebellious angels who left their heavenly roles, came down to earth, and married human women. This unusual pairing supposedly led to the creation of the Nephilim, a group of giants known as the mighty men of old. Other parts of the Bible, like Jude and 2 Peter, mention stories of angels who left their divine responsibilities for worldly desires, supporting this view. Now let's talk about the lineage of Seth's interpretation. This perspective sees the sons of God as just regular men from Seth's family line, who were often seen as the good guys. These men got involved with women from Cain's family, who were not viewed as favorably. This mix of what was seen as good and bad family lines led to a big drop in moral standards, so much so that it made God regret his creations. Unlike the idea that these were fallen angels, this view holds that the sons of God were completely human. Their downfall was linked to their bad choices in marriage, not to any mystical origins. Next, we have the kings or divine rulers theory. This theory suggests that the sons of God were actually arrogant kings or rulers who considered themselves godlike. These rulers would collect many wives as a show of power and to claim a godlike status. This behavior was similar to traditions in the ancient Near East, where kings often claimed to be like gods to support their rule and maintain control. No matter which explanation you prefer, they all focus on disastrous unions, whether between heavenly beings and humans or just between different human families, and the resulting chaos. Each story highlights a caution about the dangers of straying from the path of good and the severe outcomes that can arise from such mistakes. These tales set the background for the story of Noah, which is about surviving a massive flood sent as a divine punishment for human corruption and the effort to find redemption. These interpretations act as a dramatic introduction to the Great Flood, showing the ongoing struggle between good conduct and moral failure, and the lengths to which divine judgment can reach in reacting to human mistakes. Additionally, the sons of God appear in the Book of Job, where they are shown participating in a heavenly council with Satan. This scene, which discusses the loyalty of a man named Job, seems ordinary and administrative, a stark contrast to the profound implications of their previous interactions with human women. This juxtaposition highlights a disconnect between the weight of their earlier actions and the casual nature of their later appearances. All angels celebrated together during the creation of the earth. This sense of unity among the celestial beings is further emphasized in the book of Job, where God speaks from a whirlwind and poses challenging questions to Job. These questions illustrate the complexity of creation, a concept far beyond human comprehension, thereby underscoring humans' limited perspective compared to the divine. The explanation extends into the New Testament, focusing on how Jesus Christ's arrival on earth and his teachings transformed believers into sons of God. This change is not of human origin, but a divine transformation granted to those who accept and follow Christ. This spiritual rebirth aligns believers with the angels, making them new beings through Christ's influence, as discussed in Romans chapter 8. The text goes back to discussing celestial beings, describing them metaphorically as stars, a term also used to refer to angels. The Psalms and Corinthians are cited to support this analogy, suggesting that each star or angel possesses its unique glory. This part of the discussion emphasizes the dual nature of these celestial beings, with some maintaining their righteousness, while others stray from their intended path. Further complications arise as the discussion shifts to darker themes, referring to passages in Jude and Revelation. Here, some angels are depicted as having deviated from their duties, resulting in their confinement to realms of darkness. This narrative introduces apocalyptic elements, including a fallen star given the key to the bottomless pit, releasing chaos in the form of locusts upon the earth. This dramatic imagery serves to illustrate the consequences of deviation from divine command. Next, let's see how ancient prophecies connect with modern science and the quest for eternal life. The clash of bloodlines. The passage makes a surprising leap to connect biblical prophecies with modern scientific speculation about the discovery of an immortal gene by Google in the near future. This connection is drawn to suggest that the quest for eternal life, a concept traditionally seen in a spiritual context, is now being pursued through scientific means. The blending of these themes points to a fusion of ancient prophetic warnings with contemporary technological advancements, creating a complex picture of future possibilities where the biblical and the scientific intertwine. Imagine a scenario where you're offered a chance to live forever, but at a cost. You would have to let scientists alter your DNA completely by filling you with a substance called antimatter. This transformation is so profound that it makes you something entirely different, so much so that you can no longer be considered human. Once this change occurs, there's no turning back. You lose your chance for any kind of spiritual salvation because you are no longer who you once were. This concept is similar to what's explored in the Seed War, a conflict mentioned in both the book of Genesis and Revelation in the Bible. Some Christian scholars intensely focus on the Nephilim because they believe that the ultimate fight between good and evil is fundamentally about genetics. The word Genesis itself suggests a focus on origins and beginnings, specifically pointing to our genetic makeup. According to Genesis, God pronounced a curse upon Eve after the serpent deceived it. This curse doomed the serpent to crawl on its belly and eat dust for all its days. But more importantly, God declared a lasting hostility between the serpent and the woman, and between their respective descendants. This curse isn't just a simple punishment, it's a prophetic look at an ongoing conflict between those aligned with divine purposes and those aligned with darker forces. Christ considered the seed of the woman is destined to ultimately defeat the serpent, a victory symbolized by the crushing of the serpent's head. On the other hand, the serpent's lineage is destined to strike at humanity, causing continuous strife and opposition. This idea of a continuing battle is mirrored in the words of Jesus in the New Testament. In John chapter 8, Jesus confronts some of his detractors, telling them, that they belong to their father, the devil, a figure synonymous with lies and murder from the beginning of time. This theme extends to the history of Israel. Despite being given clear instructions from God through Moses to eradicate the original inhabitants of the Promised Land completely, the Israelites failed to do so. Instead, they mixed with these people, which diluted their spiritual and genetic purity. This disobedience is seen as a failure to maintain a clear line of distinction between God's people and others who followed corrupt practices. The instructions in the book of Deuteronomy are stark. They command the Israelites to destroy completely all the men, women, and children of certain tribes, specifically the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. This command was not about cruelty, but about preventing the corruption of Israel through associations with these groups, who were seen as carrying a malign influence. Looking through a historical lens, the Old Testament records of battles, like David's encounter with Goliath and other giants, suggest that these were not just fights over land. They were also efforts to preserve the spiritual and genetic integrity of the people. The opponents in these stories are often depicted as more than just human adversaries. They represent a corrupt lineage that posed a spiritual threat. When we talk about the biblical flood, it's not just about wiping out bad people. The Bible suggests it was more about getting rid of those with tainted bloodlines, with Noah being the only person considered pure enough to survive. Despite his issues with drinking, Noah was deemed righteous because his genetics were unaltered by supernatural beings known as the Fallen. Now we explore the Israelites' battles with giants and their lasting impact on history. The giants of biblical lore. In regions tied to the descendants of these supernatural entities, archaeologists have found skeletons with long skulls and many statues that resemble snakes. These findings seem to support tales of a bygone era when these beings were common and their strange physical traits were passed down through generations. Moving to the Book of Numbers, the story continues with Moses at the helm, leading his people to the edge of the Promised Land, Canaan. He sends 12 scouts to explore the area and report back. They are to note everything from the strength of the people living there to the quality of the land. Their findings? The land is lush, overflowing with resources like giant grapes that need 2 men to carry them. This points to some form of early genetic experimentation with crops. But it's not just about agriculture. The scouts also report on the massive city walls and the giant descendants of Anak, a figure linked back to the ancient city of Babylon. These giants are portrayed as part of a lineage that includes celestial or supernatural beings, suggesting a continuous influence of these entities throughout human history. After the scouts return, the narrative takes a darker turn. Most of the Israelites show a lack of faith in their ability to conquer Canaan, leading to a divine punishment. Only Joshua and Caleb, who remained faithful, are spared from this judgment. The rest are condemned to wander the desert for 40 additional years. In this time, they encounter more giants like Og of Bashan. These meetings are described like military encounters, emphasizing the challenges the Israelites faced and the divine support they received to overcome these foes. This biblical account isn't just a simple history lesson. It's a complex tale filled with challenges, divine interactions, and lessons on faith. It shows that in those times, maintaining faith was crucial for survival. And giants were more than just myths. They were a real part of the landscape that the Israelites had to navigate. The story mixes elements of human struggle, supernatural influences, and the overarching theme of divine justice and protection. It tells us how the Israelites took over land from 2 Amorite kings. This land stretched from the Arnon River to Mount Hermon, including all the cities on the plains, Gilead and Bashan, up to Salah and Edrei, which were under King Og of Bashan's rule. King Og was noted as the last of the giants, and his enormous iron bed was 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. From these measurements, it is estimated that King Og was about 12 feet tall, which is more than twice the height of a typical man. Earlier sections describe similar encounters where the Israelites fought and defeated giants. These giants were not just large, but perhaps different in their genetic makeup, likely due to unnatural unions between humans and supernatural beings, which resulted in the Nephilim. These giants were considered both physically and morally corrupt, known to consume humans and represent a distortion of natural life that made them unacceptable to God. God's response to these beings was clear. His chosen people were to completely eliminate them. Towns known to house these giants, like Jericho, were to be cleansed completely, removing their presence from the earth. The biblical text is straightforward about these divine orders, commanding the elimination of everyone in these areas, regardless of whether they were men, women, children, or animals, if they were considered corrupted. Additionally, the narrative implies that these events could happen again, linking past transgressions with potential future ones. This perspective is skeptical of scientific progress, drawing parallels between contemporary genetic research and historical acts viewed as transgressions against divine law. It serves as a cautionary tale, using dramatic recounting of past events to warn against similar actions in the future. We continue with the story of the Israelites and their encounters with powerful beings, the Nephilim's legacy of destruction. The text uses these historical accounts to discuss themes of purity, divine command, and the human role in maintaining or disrupting order. It emphasizes the severity of the consequences when humans stray from what is considered a divinely approved path. It also demonstrates the importance of adhering to what is believed to be God's plan for humanity. The stories from Genesis 6 and the Book of Enoch tell us about angels who were drawn to the beauty of human women, leading to some serious rule-breaking in the heavens. Instead of being the good messengers we might expect, these angels gave in to their desires and planned to marry these women and have children with them. Shemjaza, the leader of this group, was worried about the consequences, but was reassured by his followers, who promised to share any punishment. They all made a pact and settled on Mount Hermon, because that's where they swore their oaths. Mount Hermon later became significant in religious stories. Many believe it was the place where Jesus showed his divine nature to his closest followers. This event was also seen as a symbolic judgment against those rebellious angels, marking the mountain as a site of both heavenly promises and betrayals. The fallen angels didn't stop at marrying human women. They taught them all sorts of forbidden knowledge like magic and the use of herbs for spells. This knowledge led to chaos. Their children were giants, huge in both size and appetite. They consumed everything humans had, and when there was nothing left, they turned violent and began to attack humans. These giants went further, disturbing the natural order by mixing different species, affecting animals in the air, land, and sea. This tampering had long-lasting effects, suggesting that some strange sea creatures we might wonder about today could be descendants of these unnatural unions. This is why, according to some religious texts, there will be no sea in the new world after the apocalypse, as it's seen as a place tainted by past sins. The Book of Revelation describes the end times with intense imagery. The first angel brings a plague that infects the land, and the second turns the sea to blood, killing all marine life. This is seen as a cleansing of the earth from all the corruption and harm caused by the Nephilim and their forefathers. These stories use vivid language and striking scenes to show what happens when divine beings interfere with the human world and nature. It's a series of events that starts with breaking heavenly laws and ends with consequences, not just for the angels, but for all of creation. The earth and sea are left bearing the scars of these actions, and the texts warn us about the dangers of overstepping boundaries and causing irreversible damage. It seems that creatures living in the ocean escape the kind of punishment that those on land often face. Some believe this is not because of any special deals with higher powers, but due to a curse in their DNA that ultimately leads to their destruction. A closer look at the Book of Enoch, specifically chapter 19, supports this idea when discussing the Nephilim. In this chapter, Uriel, an angel, points out that this place is reserved for angels who mingled with human women, causing them to stray from the right path. These angels change into various forms, leading people to mistakenly worship demons as if they were gods. They are bound to this place until the day they are finally judged and destroyed. The book frequently mentions corrupted blood and the mixing of DNA, which created the Nephilim. These beings were not only giants, but also unnatural mixes of different creatures. This mixture led to hybrids, creatures that were part human, part something else. Even after these hybrids died in a great flood, their spirits stayed on Earth. These spirits, waiting for the day they will be judged, change into many forms, tricking people into worshiping them, even though they are not fully human. This explanation also makes sense of the strange sounds that come from demons during exorcisms. These sounds are not made in jest, but are a display of their true mixed nature. Finally, we look at how ancient tales and modern beliefs shape our understanding of good and evil, from giants to fallen angels. This explanation offers a straightforward look at how spiritual beings might use genetic manipulation to continue affecting the world. It suggests a sobering interaction between spiritual beings and human beliefs, where respect and deception often mix in confusing ways. This portrayal makes us reconsider the influences behind our religious and spiritual experiences, highlighting a complex web of influence and manipulation that spans both the seen and unseen world. The term familiar spirits comes from an old Latin word, familiaris, which refers to a spirit that is closely connected not to your immediate family, but rather to your household or lineage in a broader sense. It suggests an otherworldly presence that is unnervingly aware of your family's history and personal details. When we explore the mystifying and somewhat eerie concept of the Nephilim, we're venturing far beyond the realm of typical ancestral spirits or benign ghostly figures. The Nephilim are ancient, enigmatic entities believed to be trapped in a liminal space between worlds. Their presence in our world isn't marked by nurturing familial bonds or benevolent intentions. Rather, these beings are often depicted as having a sinister agenda rooted deep in deception and malice. They are age-old manipulators, masters of illusion and confusion, whose ultimate goal is to mislead humanity, leading them astray from paths of truth and enlightenment. The Nephilim lore is not confined to casual mentions of giants roaming the earth in ancient times. This narrative is deeply interwoven with various ancient texts and scriptures, transcending the simple tales of massive beings. For instance, the biblical account from the Apocrypha offers just a glimpse into their supposed history and characteristics. Caleb, one of the two spies who wholeheartedly trusted in the promises of God, chose on a daunting mission. His objective was to confront and overthrow the descendants of these giants, an endeavor that symbolizes a broader theme in ancient folklore: the triumph over seemingly insurmountable foes through steadfast faith and divine support. The story of David, the young shepherd who later became king, is a profound example of human bravery facing extraordinary challenges. His decision to fight the giant Goliath with only 5 stones is a tale that resonates within religious and mythological circles. This famous battle represents the ongoing conflict between human vulnerability and overwhelming threats. It highlights an ancient belief that the world was full of supernatural dangers, which could only be conquered with help from the divine. This story also connects to the narrative of the wandering stars, or fallen angels, who went against God's commands. These celestial beings left their heavenly residence to engage in forbidden unions with human women on earth, creating complex stories of myth and theology. This interaction resulted in the birth of the Nephilim, beings born from both divine and mortal origins. Ancient texts suggest that their existence led to significant turmoil and unusual occurrences. These accounts offer a rich blend of mythic and religious ideas, providing insight into themes of rebellion, purity, and the profound effects of celestial entities on human lives. The legends of the Nephilim are even more varied as they are portrayed differently across various cultures and time periods. In some stories, they appear as bringers of ruin, their presence indicating coming disasters. In other accounts, they are depicted as tragic figures, forever caught between belonging to neither the heavens nor the earth completely. This makes the Nephilim an intriguing subject for exploration, as their stories touch on universal concepts of feeling out of place, ongoing conflict, and the pursuit of redemption. These narratives continue to be a source of fascination and discussion, showing how ancient tales can still impact our understanding of cultural and spiritual dilemmas. Through these myriad stories and interpretations, the Nephilim continue to captivate the imagination, bridging the known and the unknown, the natural and the supernatural. They remind us of the thin veil that supposedly separates our world from the realms beyond, and the ancient human instinct to personify that we cannot fully understand. Each story and each retelling adds layers to our understanding of these formidable figures, painting a complex picture of our collective fascination with the boundaries of our reality and the beings that may lurk just beyond our sight. The term Nephilim refers not only to giants, but also to a variety of corrupt beings who supposedly brought trouble to Earth. While a great flood killed all other living beings with breath, these beings somehow survived in the water, continuing to cause problems. This tale stretches the limits of what seems realistic in religious teachings, blending ancient myths with religious beliefs. Moreover, the discussion moves to a complicated idea of spiritual birth. It compares the unholy relationships of the fallen angels to the holy conception of Jesus by the Holy Spirit, which might seem like a forced comparison. It also claims that being born of water and the Spirit refers not to baptism, but to natural birth from a mother's womb, adding another layer of complex religious interpretation that requires not only faith, but also a significant suspension of disbelief. The passage then makes a clear call to action for spiritual salvation through faith in Jesus Christ, referred to as the seed who was promised. This is an evangelical approach, using the video to educate and spark interest in biblical stories. The video's creator encourages viewers to read the Bible if they are curious and to leave comments for further discussion. They also promote their Patreon, asking for support in exchange for exclusive content, which shows how ancient stories are marketed in the digital era. Do you think ancient biblical stories are relevant in today's world? Leave a comment and subscribe to join the discussion and explore more intriguing topics.